Hello, everybody. Hello, hello. Welcome to Entrepreneurship Tea again, where we're sharing our experiences, our journey, and our missed opportunities. Because, like we always say on Entrepreneurship Tea, if you don't handle those missed opportunities, they can become failure. Today, I have a very special guest. But even before we go into our guest, we are officially in season 2 of Entrepreneurship Tea. And if you've been following us, we've come a long way. It's been almost a year since we got started. I did not think that we were going to come this far. This guest that I'm about to have on here, I've been chasing her for a few months now. We've been rescheduling, and here we are today. So I'm really excited to have Raven on here. I'll do her bio like we usually do, and then she will come on, and then we'll get into this conversation. But I believe that you guys have a whole lot to learn from Raven today. That's why I invited her to come. So let's get into Raven's bio. Raven is the founder of RP Digital Design Studios, a Houston-based brand and web design studio built for the professionals who've already done the work. They just need a digital presence that proves it. Since 2019, she's been helping establish consultants, service providers, and mission-driven founders close the gap between their real-world experience and how they show up online. She calls them legacy builders, and her entire studio is designed around one conviction: your brand should open doors before you even say a word. What sets Raven apart isn't just the design, it's the strategy behind it. She approaches every project like a business problem, not a creative exercise, which means her clients don't just leave with something beautiful. They leave with something that works. Rooted in faith and built on resilience, RP Digital Design Studios is more than a studio. It's a proof that your presence finally matches your purpose. Everything changes. So I am going to have Miss Raven. Raven, please, please, please. Welcome to Entrepreneurship Tea. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am so happy to have you. How's your day going?
It is going well. I'm very excited to be here. I know it's been a long time coming, but I'm very excited. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. So I want us to have a conversation today. Like I always say, just pretend like those who are listening to us, they're just a fly on the wall. I want you to tell me a little bit about yourself, right? We just read your bio, but I want you to go back as far as you can. What I always ask all of my guests, have you always been someone who's an entrepreneur? Have you always had an entrepreneurship mindset, or this is something that you grew into over the years?
It's a good question. I would say I'm going to take you way back. Growing up, I have always enjoyed like creating things like that. And I didn't really have a whole knowledge of like entrepreneurship until my grandfather. He knew that I could cook. So I used to like really enjoy cooking for my family. And so one of his neighbors, they actually wanted to like buy my food. So I used to always bake or cook. And so my grandfather actually convinced his neighbors to buy my potato salad. So I made my first sale. I sold it for like $50. I think I was like 10 years old and it was for a family reunion. So they were like actually buying these meals that I used to make. And I was like, oh, okay, I like this. I can make something and sell it. From there, honestly, I just thought like, I'll just go the regular route of school, all the things. Marketing is actually my degree and background. And from there, I actually went ahead and pursued business. And so after I got the business degree and all of that, I worked in corporate and a couple of odd jobs here and there. And I was like, I think I actually want to get back into entrepreneurship. Like I enjoy it. I enjoy working with people. I don't like feeling like I have to do the whole corporate dance. Like I really enjoy entrepreneurship. And so that's kind of what helped me. But I would say it definitely all started with selling potato salad to family
Salad.
at their yeah, but that was how I got my start, if you will, in entrepreneurship.
So did you have anybody in your family that was an entrepreneur?
Didn't so well, I'll say yes, but they weren't successful, right? So
Okay.
they tried to like start businesses, but I would say I'm the first like entrepreneur like out of my family.
So sometimes when people try and it doesn't succeed like that, it could put this fear in everyone's heart that's in the family or that's been part of that experience. When
Mhm.
you were thinking about your entrepreneurship journey, was this something that shaped your experience, like that shaped your mindset coming into being an entrepreneur?
Honestly, no, because I don't know, it kind of fueled me a little bit more. Parents, like, they were getting into, like, government contracting and just different things that they wanted
Mm.
to, like, experience. I remember they got, like, one contract and brought me on, and it was a success, and I got to go under my own business. Even though they weren't, like, full-time entrepreneurs like I am, I was still able to kind of take the skills that they gave me and not really carry that into, like, my business because it never felt like defeated. They were always still working towards it, even if it wasn't, like, working out, and so I
Mhm.
think that's where I talk a lot about resilience in what I do because I just always look forward to, like, the positive outcome. So I try to be realistic, that
Yeah.
it could not work, but my family never really was like, "Don't do it." It was kind of
Yeah.
like, "You know how corporate is, like, take your chance
Mhm.
and just do it because we didn't," you know?
Yeah.
So I was able to have that.
So I would say that you're very young, right? Being an entrepreneur, working for yourself, you're very young. So you being young and taking the leap of faith on being an entrepreneur, what would you
Mhm.
say are some of the misconception that people have about entrepreneurship? Then, like what would you say are probably you can name two of the biggest misconception that people have about entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I feel like and it's funny you say I'm young because 'cause I'm like, "Am I?" I don't but, I would say two of the biggest misconceptions I think is and these are things I dealt with, is that when you come into, like, your business, you almost sometimes treat it like a corporate job, not
Mhm.
realizing that you can honestly sell yourself and market to what works for you, right? Like, I think sometimes people tend to get into this and think they have to use like corporate jargon and things like that just to like make sales. I know it sounds really cliche. I do this in branding, right, all the time. So it's like
Yeah.
really your messaging sells when like you can sell yourself to the right people. Like you don't have to keep trying to sell some sort of boxed cookie cutter version of you because the right people are gonna be attracted. So I would say that would be the number one thing is feeling like you have to speak a certain way in
Yeah.
order to like actually sell and be successful is one misconception. I think the other is probably that you don't have to have like a system.
Right.
So even though I'm very creative, I'm also very much like systemized,
Yeah.
logical on one
Mhm.
end. So I think sometimes people kind of jump into it and they're not like as organized as they
Yeah.
should be on the back end. So I think sometimes we tend to forget like, yes, we can fall in love with like our clients and those experiences, but there also has to be order like SOPs and things like that on
Yeah.
the back end so that you
Yeah.
can actually be an operational business. So that would also be another misconception is I think a lot of people forget the operation aspect of being like an entrepreneur.
Yeah. So what would you
Mhm.
say that you've learned about yourself throughout this process of entrepreneurship?
Ooh, that's a good question. What have I learned about myself? I would say I've learned that it's funny, it sounds cliche again, but like I can do hard things. And I say that because this has been journey. There's been
Mhm.
times we always say it, right? There's been times where I wanted to like throw it to the wall, and just be like, I'm going back to corporate. Like I can't do
Yep.
this. There's been times that have been so, like, good and fruitful, and I think it also kind of came back to me setting the right foundation in my business. So, for me, it just looks like making sure that I'm aligned with, like, what I'm supposed to be doing and the people I'm, like, called to help, and I feel
Mhm.
like when I was just kind of, like, doing it for the hustle and, like, for the money, it's like, "Okay, that's good," but there
Yeah.
wasn't really any fulfillment in it, and
Mhm.
so I think for me, that was, like, a big like lesson I learned about just like who I am and how I operate and what's actually going to be successful and sustainable long term.
Yeah. So one of the things that I realize about business, because you deal with businesses, right? And
Mhm.
we'll talk about this at some point where you had to change like like your client profile, like the type of clients that you're going after,
Mhm.
right? So
Yeah.
you deal with a lot of people that are coming into business or they've been in business at some point through their journey. At what point do you or would you say as a designer, as a brand, as a marketing personnel, right? At what
Mhm.
point would you say the CEO or the individual should start separating themselves from their brand so that their brand can have an identity of its own?
That's a good question. So, because for me, that's something I'm actually going through myself.
Mhm.
But I say from the beginning because especially with the way that the market's been shifting now,
Yeah,
I know you probably heard the term of like a trust recession, right? Which is basically where like people online aren't buying as quick anymore.
right.
People, they bought the courses and all of that post-COVID and they did all that, and now they're burnt out, and they're like, "I actually wanna see what you do a little bit more before I buy it." And so
Yeah.
part of that involves people actually wanting to get to know you, the person, beside, like,
Mhm.
you, the company. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of us as entrepreneurs, even people I've worked with, sometimes we could try to, like, market our businesses like celebrities do, right? But we don't have that level of visibility. We don't have, like, that level of influence.
And the
So I always
cash
say
that goes into it.
yeah, it's like we can't just, start an Instagram page with one graphic and think we're gonna make, like, sales.
Right.
Like, we have to do the work. And so I would say, honestly, as soon as possible, if not when you first start your business,
Mhm.
go ahead and start getting that personal brand essentially together because in the long run, right, like, I think a lot of people have a goal of, like, long term, you don't wanna keep doing one-to-one, right? You wanna have a team, you
Right.
wanna scale, you wanna grow. And so that's also like an avenue that gets you more because I work with a lot of like consultants or like speakers, people who want to get into speaking. And so a
Mhm.
lot of times I'm recognizing that once they're like starting their being able to start getting speaking engagements looks like them being visible aside from just like the company that they run. And even when
Right.
you're looking at like these bigger like thought leaders or speakers, they all have companies, but usually you see them in the forefront. But I think it's still good that you still have a company and let that company function as your team, but still have your personal brand like at the forefront from the beginning could be
Yeah,
helpful.
I think that's something that I struggle with in the beginning because I mean, obviously, depending on the business in the beginning, you need to be in the weeds of things, right?
Yeah.
But I got to the point that I'm like, okay, well, this like if I want this company to succeed me, I cannot always
Mhm.
be like the face of it. Like whenever people call, they can't just only want to speak with me. Like how do
Right.
I have that conversation with someone, right? Or how
Mhm.
do I position myself so that people can just not start seeing me only for insurance, right? Because obviously, at some point in my journey as an entrepreneurship, I may want to pursue other things, right?
Mhm.
And if others are only seeing me as an insurance person, not a speaker, not a this, not a that, right? It sort of limits me and it only puts me in this like pool, like this tiny pool, right? Of
Mhm.
what my potential are. So I really wanted to ask that question so that people can know like at what point, because sometimes I feel like people feel like, okay, let me wait until it's year 5 or year 10 or until I'm
Mhm.
making $1 million, right? And
Mhm.
these things, it starts with the like at the very beginning, right?
Yeah.
Versus until you get to a certain level of your business.
But even to your point, like I know I emphasized the beginning, but like I work with a lot of what we call right established experts. These are people who've been in business for a while. And so
Mhm.
sometimes that shift happens. Like there's always a moment I feel like, especially because I know like you have a team and everything where you're like, I actually don't think that I want to keep
Yeah.
front facing like this. And I think at that exact moment is when you need to like pivot and start thinking about other avenues, right?
Yeah.
For yourself, like with your personal brand. So I would say to that point, like, yes, in the beginning is great, especially with where the market is if you're a new business owner. But if you're like more established, like we are, I would definitely say that exact moment where you know that something's kind of changing or you're starting to feel that weight, right? Of how you mentioned,
Yeah.
people might always think I want to talk to you directly. And you're like, well, I have a whole team of people that you can talk to. Um, when you need to like really start thinking, okay, how can I actually shift this a little bit to take away some of that weight off of me and focus on other avenues? Because even when we think about ourselves as like founders and CEOs, our jobs are really to like structure the business and let people do their jobs, delegate,
Yep.
right? And that can
Mhm.
allow us space to trust one, trust our team to execute, but to give us also some freedom in our capacity to pursue other areas to one, either drive more money to you for your personal brand or drive more money to the business. So I think
Mhm.
that would be a good way to look at it too. So once maybe you start having that moment where you're like, I think I want to step back, then maybe reevaluate and say, like, what does this actually look like for me with my personal brand versus the company? That makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So there's something that happens to entrepreneurs that, especially when it comes to this online presence conversations, right?
Mm-mm.
While being online is great, I feel like not every business needs to be on every platform, right?
Mhm.
So I want us to have that conversation so that those who are work or watch, they know, right? Because I see some of the entrepreneurs like struggling out there and they're like, you know what, this social media thing is so annoying, right? Especially those who are not
Yeah.
social media savvy and things of that nature. From a brand's perspective or from like a digital media perspective. I want you to touch on that and just give advice to people at what point should being on social media or being having a digital presence matter, and at what point
Mhm.
in your journey should you be like, okay, maybe this is not important like everything else, but I'm not going to forget it, right? And then also
Mhm.
at what point are you like, you know what, forget this. If it happens, it happens.
Mhm.
If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. Because I think there are people that are in those three buckets that I just
Mhm.
listed, that are probably struggling, right? Some of them maybe they're
Yeah.
not paying attention to it at all and they need to be paying attention to it, or they're paying too
Mhm.
much attention to it, right?
Mhm.
Or they're being nonchalant or neglecting that. So like I just want you to
Yeah.
talk to that.
Yeah, so I think this is part of like a bigger like marketing ecosystem conversation. So I
Yeah.
think first of all, I think that everyone should have an online presence. And the reason I say that too is because, and I ran into this in my business. So just for context, I used to do really just referrals only. And then I would sometimes post on Instagram, and I'm a designer, right? So you think I post more, but no. I was mostly referral only in my business. And so I recognized that like when those referrals might dry up, right? Just based on the season that those people are in, what else do you have?
Yeah.
That's when that kind of conversation comes about like other marketing channels. Do I think you should be on every platform? Absolutely not. That's exhausting.
Mm.
If you can do it, I would say like, people always recommend starting off with like long form. So like if you do video or you're a service provider, YouTube is a great choice, right? Because from
Mhm.
YouTube, you can do things like repurposing that content. So, like clipping those videos a lot shorter and just posting them as like a short or as a reel on Instagram versus creating new content constantly and burning yourself out.
Yeah.
But I think overall, for people, I think sometimes we try to do too much at once. And I think that we should really just get on one platform that we find comfortable. It could be like something as simple as Pinterest, right?
Yeah.
If you're a service provider and you're providing a lot of good content in your blog or something like that, go to Pinterest. You don't have to be on Instagram. People are getting Pinterest stuff all the time. That is also a search engine for most folks that they forget. So yeah, I don't think that it's necessary to be on every platform, but I think that you should be on at least one platform and actually utilize it to its like most capability. And then from there, you'll be able to kind of see traffic, like grow your community and your audience that way. But it is necessary.
Yeah. And I think also
Mm.
too, it helps if you know what your like who your clients are. Like
Yeah.
knowing your client profile will let you know which platform to be on. And in the
Mhm.
beginning, I was like, I remember I started TikTok, I think I want to say maybe a couple of years ago. And I
Uh-huh.
would just be on TikTok
Yeah.
scrolling, watching people dance. And then I'm like, I've been on this platform for like 2 hours, like posting
Right.
nonsense, right? Or watching nonsense. And then I started to
Mhm.
think about it. I said, okay, in this agency, most of our clients are business owners. And the
Mhm.
type of business that I'm looking for, most of them are not on TikTok like that. So TikTok
Mhm.
is really not where I should be putting my efforts, right?
Mhm.
So I decided to get off the platform. The account is there. So if you guys look me up on TikTok, I'm there, but I haven't logged on in like almost 2 years, right? But knowing your client, knowing where your client hang out, I think helps you
Mhm.
decide which social media platform you should go with. Because
Mhm.
sometimes some people are so focused on, oh, I need to be on LinkedIn, I need to be on Facebook, I need to be on X, Y, and Z. If your clients are younger people are really not on LinkedIn like that, but you will find them on
Mhm.
IG or on TikTok, right? Or if you're looking for business owners are not on TikTok. Most of them may not be on IG, but you can find
Mhm.
them on LinkedIn and you can also find them on other platform. Pinterest, I tried my friend because I was telling her I need to decorate my apartment and then she was like, "You should go to Pinterest." So I went
Yeah. I mean, you get all
I
kinds of
don't get
ideas.
it. Like, how the heck do people use this? Like, where do I even search for stuff? And I just got frustrated and I left, right?
Mhm.
So for me, I
Mhm.
know pictures is not my thing, right?
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of really just knowing where your people are hanging out and how to go and
Mhm.
find them. I think that that helps with deciding which area or which platform you should have a presence on. But sometimes I hear people getting frustrated. This Facebook thing, oh, this real thing, oh, this, that. And I'm like, I mean, should you be posting? Like, is it a priority? Is it a priority for you? So
Yeah.
thanks. Yeah. Thanks for touching on that. I think it's really important for people to know, like, so that they can figure out like where they're putting their efforts. So, touching on client profile, right? I
Mhm.
know at some point, because I think we've known each other for about 2 years now. So, we met at the
Mhm.
Goldman Sachs Black in Business Cohort 4, and then
Oh,
you were
wow.
my project partner. We were project partners. And I know that when we started that program, you had a different portfolio or profile for your customers. And I know now
Mhm.
you've changed the profile of your customers. So tell us about what was the idea behind that? What made you want to be like want to change your client profile after that program?
Yeah. Oh, he took me back because that was so long. So, okay, what shifted for me from the personas, because we call them my audience personas and profiles. At
Yeah.
that time, I honestly was like, I want to help everybody. Like, I don't have a niche. I do it all. Like, I'm just a creative. I want to help everybody. And I realized very quickly that, I wasn't helping anyone that I really needed to, and trying to help everybody. So I got really clear on like where exactly the people were, that I
Mhm.
wanted to help. And I think for me, what that looked like is I was I think it's great that people start, just want to preface it. I think it's great that people start businesses, but for me, I don't do well with um new business owners. And I
Yeah.
say that because what they need is completely different from someone who's been in business for 5+ years, right? And
Mhm.
so I learned very quickly that I can still be a resource for you, but maybe I'm not the best designer for you if you're just now starting business. Because at that point, you really need to get clear on actually who you want to work with, what actually your offers are. And you've got to really get your strategy together, right? But when I'm
Mhm.
working with someone who's maybe been in business for like 5+ years, which is why I say like established experts or like legacy builders, or like these are people who know that I'm not necessarily quitting my business. I'm not in a season where I want to like let things go. I want
Mhm.
this to last. And I just need strategy to help me in the pivot or in this shift that I'm going through in my business. And so I got
Nice.
really clear about that because I was also in that place where I was like, things are changing. I'm shifting. And I
Yeah.
realized like I want to help more like entrepreneurs that are in this similar space where it's like,
Mm.
I know exactly what I do. I know what I sell. Like I've done it. I've made money, but like something's changing for me and I don't quite know what that looks like. So I need help. And that's like where I come in and I realize like, oh, I actually thrive in helping people in their like pivot season.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, I'm going to shift and work with people who are already established in business, no more new business owners and people. And I still work with like all types of industries, but just more clear about like how long you've been there, if you're actually clear on your services and what your overall like long-term goals are. I think I
Mm.
definitely work better with people in that space than before.
Nice, nice. Yeah, no, I think that's great. And I think also too, you making that pivots with preserving your energy too. Also, it helps with setting your, I guess, point for lack of a better word, because
Mhm.
for the newer folks that are coming on board is so price conscious that sometimes it's like listen, like you need this thing, right? And then sometimes they're not ready to have that conversation in the beginning unless
Mhm.
they're getting, VC capital or something of that nature, right? Then it's easier. They don't mind showing up, giving you the money to actually trust you to do the work. But I think in the
Exactly.
beginning stages, which I do deal with a lot of businesses that are in the beginning, same thing with you. Like in the beginning, it's like in a couple of years ago, if a new business gets sent to me, the conversation was, okay, well, you know what, let's get this thing going, blah, blah, blah. I had to
Mhm.
pause and start asking some questions because sometimes people are not realistic about really what the journey of entrepreneurship is, about the
Mhm.
expenses that comes along with it before you even start making revenue, the upfront expenses. I think people are not realistic about that. And insurance is one of those costs that people let out the window when they're facing a difficult month. Right. So for me, it just looked like, okay, we were writing bad businesses because people would come to me in a hurry. Oh,
Mhm.
we need this certificate. We need this for us to file for our credentials from X, Y, and Z. And then like my team and I will boom, 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 get it out to them. And then like 2 months later or 3 months later, yeah, I
Mhm.
can't find any clients. I can't pay, like I can't make payments on this policy. And then the policy lapse. And that was really
Mhm.
impacting our retention. These are things that insurance companies looked at when they come into our agency. So I had to start weeding out like
Mhm.
like having conversations with people. Listen, you're going to this type of business. Are you sure you're ready for this? This is the estimate of what needs to be done. And here's the realistic expectation of it. Think about it and let me know when you're ready
Mhm.
to move forward, right? Because you can't call me after 2 months or you can't call me after a month and say, oh, I don't have clients. Like just for
Yeah.
realistic expectation, you may not have clients for at least 6 months. So that means you need to pay this premium for the next 6 months or for the next however, right? So I
Mhm.
think really having that conversation with them in the beginning, they don't have that realistic expectation. And if you're catering to them, sometimes it's not the best use of your time, right?
I
Because they usually just jump around here and there. So, I mean, if you're watching and you're new or you're looking to go into business, like we're not trying to bash new business, like those who are coming
Right.
into business. It's just our experiences. We're just letting you guys know because we deal with a lot of new businesses. So we're just sharing our experiences so that in
Mhm.
hearing this, if you're looking to come into business, you can set the real expectation for yourself so that you know what comes along with starting a business so that you can be prepared and not be surprised and not waste your marketing person time and not waste your web designer's time and all of that because all of these things require your full on attention, right? Especially with
Right.
web design. Web design or like marketing, digital marketing requires your full on attention. And if you don't have directions, you can't tell them where to go if you don't know where you're going. So
Right.
that's really what this conversation is about. It's not about bashing those who are new in business. We don't think we've arrived. We're still trying.
Right. Right. I still get nervous about price increase, invoices, so I get it.
Right.
But
Yeah. We
I
don't
like
think we've
to say
arrived.
that.
Yeah. So when you
Mhm.
change your client profile, did you change your consultation fees or did you change your pricing structure?
I did. Whew, okay, so I changed I'm thinking through the process. So,
Yeah.
when I changed my actual, like, client profiles, I did restructure my pricing based on just the I did research based off of who I've worked with in the past and, like,
Mhm.
inquired, and then also I did some research on, like, what industry folks are actually charging, right? So that's what kind of helped me set my rate, and I also have a lovely accountant, shout out to Dondra and her team, who, like, let me kind of look at my offers and like we were running numbers to kind of see like what actually is my profit margin. Like we were going through each thing and
Yeah.
mapping it out. So that was really the key driver in me changing my prices, which honestly I've increased not too much, but quite a bit
Mhm.
from where I was because I also was kind of like I said, when I was working with new business owners, I was kind of doing like almost if you're familiar with the term like sliding scale, like I would say, like,
Yeah.
oh, I could do XYZ for this much just to help you out. Cause I do still have a heart for the new business owners. And like you said, we're not bashing. But that is where I came up with having like another idea, right? Like you might not be able to work with me one to one, but maybe I have these templates for you to like get started, right? Or maybe you
Yeah.
can do a strategy session with me to like get clear on these things. So you're not completely discounted out, but if you're looking for more support, that looks different at a different, obviously, price as well. So I think a lot of it was just looking at my current numbers, my goals for the business, and then
Mhm.
also just auditing my existing offers to see what made the most sense. Because
Mm.
I didn't necessarily say like, oh, I'm going to work with consultants now. I'm going to charge them, X amount. It was more of a let me actually look at my offer, what feels realistic, what is the market actually charging, and what I'm providing based on, the team that I want to bring in or those type of details, and kind of running it that way.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. No, I
Mhm.
think I think that's great. That's great. Did you have any pushback from anyone? Or now it's like, "Oh, okay, that's reasonable."
This is why it's important for those listening to know your audience because like me, I definitely get some pushback, not as
Mhm.
much as I used to.
Okay.
These days, when honestly your price and your clientele changes, like sometimes you're not getting as much like inquiries and things like
Mm,
that as far
mhm.
as like leads, but you do usually get people who are interested. But I feel like the only time that I get pushback is if someone is like not really as familiar, maybe they're cold and they
Mm,
think like, I only need, a one page site or something like that, right? Can you adjust the scope? And for me, I'm at a point where I'm just like, no, if you want page site, I do have this service available. So I think that's also a thing for people listening is like, if you don't necessarily want to turn people away, have maybe or consider a different offer that doesn't involve so much of you as far as your time, but maybe
yeah.
it's at a lower price point that can still serve those people and serve them well. So
Mm.
that you're not necessarily turning them away. So that's another thing that I do in my business.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Having a
Mhm.
solution versus people feeling like,
Yeah.
I don't need your business in-house." So I love that. I love
Right.
that. So if you can go back, right, and do some things differently with your company or just the journey as an entrepreneur, like what would you do and why?
Say, honestly, this, I'm a woman of faith.
Yeah.
I like when I first started my business, it was kind of birthed out of a place of I have a good gift and
Mm,
I don't want to work in corporate. So I'm gonna just hustle, right? Hustle was the mentality.
yeah.
But now that I've been in it, I'm more of like actually doing business with God, right? Like trying to build it on the right foundation and praying over things. Because I think that that is very important, just being rooted and knowing like what your direction is. So for me, a lot of it would be really just focusing back on like what actually is the goal here? Like what is my assignment and how am I doing it with my gifts for people
Yeah.
versus just I just want to make money. I just feel like that was my that was
Yeah.
my and so now that I'm doing that, I think it's really changed my perspective around even the people that I work with, right? And like how I perceive some of the things they're doing and how I can help them like walk out their assignments through like design and things like that in terms of like their branding and their website. So I would say if I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't focus so much on like the hustle mode mentality. I
Yeah.
would really like kind of take it real back and just say like, okay, what actually is like my purpose and how can I like fulfill that in my work? And I know a lot of people kind of push back on this of like, your purpose in business isn't a thing
Yeah.
that's going to sustain you. But I feel like if you're clear on that in your life as a whole,
Mhm.
then it'll show that fruit will show in the business and the work that you do.
Would you say that you pray over your clients before you go into a consultation meeting with them?
I with them or just about like
No, just
when
before, like, you get on. Like, if you receive an inquiry, like, are you like, "God, listen, this person is gonna be a headache," because
I
I do
usually
say a
just
little prayer.
fine.
I do say a little prayer, and if you're gonna stress me out as a client, listen, if you decline,
Mhm.
I'm not gonna force you, okay?
Honestly, I try to do that even before the inquiries come, just like, please just send the right people my way. But if
Yeah,
I see something, again, to your point about like knowing the people you work with, if I see something on their inquiry form, because I won't hop on a call with everybody. So like even if you book a call and I see your form and
yeah.
maybe like something you didn't really complete it or give me information or something we just don't seem aligned, I will, cancel the call and I'll say like, hey, I might not be the best fit for this. Here's maybe
Mm,
something else to help you, or here's someone else I recommend to work with. So I think one is discernment before even
yeah.
hopping on these calls. But also I do like always try to pray and just say, like, ooh, if this is a good fit, like please just let it flow. If it's not, please don't send it my way.
Yeah, I think, like, in the beginning, like, I try so hard to, like, make sure that every client likes me and that every client would be a good fit, and I think
Mhm.
now that I'm in year 5 and I understand the level of stress and and what comes with my business,
Mhm.
if, like you said, if I see the intake form and it doesn't unless you come with, like, from like a really good referral source, like somebody that's like, patience, I need you to do me a favor with this person, then, obviously then I will
Mhm.
do that for the person, right? But I'm
Mhm.
getting to the point that I'm like, you didn't answer this. So that means you really don't. Because again, if you don't
Mhm.
give me the information I'm looking for in my intake form, that just means that you are not there yet for you to be able to sustain the costs that comes with what I'm about to provide to you. And guess what? This also impacts me as well. So I'm getting to that point.
Mhm.
And then also too, I'm at that point where obviously it's not every account that comes into the agency that I'm looking at on the,
Mhm.
like, okay, any account that's within this range or that's has this line of business, like you guys, like just go ahead,
Mhm.
enjoy yourselves with it. Do the quote, boom, 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 get it out to them, right?
Mhm.
So I'm getting to that point, but really before it's like I needed to talk to every client. Which of course these are things that we do in the beginning of our business because we're trying to hold our business like our baby, right? Oh, this is my
Mhm.
baby. Nobody can do anything right except for me. Like nobody can do this
Yeah.
process right except for me, right? And the cost
Mhm.
burned out like a lot. Like, and I think
Yeah.
if I can be honest, I've probably struggled with being burnt out for like over the last year because of everything else that's happening, right? But now I'm more intentional about being selective about who I talk to, especially for new business and things like that. So if you're listening, we're not saying that you should obviously apply this in the beginning because we've
Mhm.
obviously gotten to the next stage of our lives or of our business or our
Mhm.
businesses for us to be able to make these decisions. But we just at the end of the day, like there is a point that you get to that you're like, okay, I need to make these pivots in my business or I need to make these changes and things like that. So that's all we're trying to say. So Raven, tell me
Mhm.
what would be an advice from a digital market. And I think we sort of like touch on these, but for your
Mhm.
advice, what advice would you give to a beginning company, right? That's coming into business in general. Okay. What advice would you give them? And then also, what advice would you give somebody who's coming into your business that wants to open a digital design company like yours? We'll go with the
Okay.
beginners first, and then we'll go with the more experienced folks.
Okay. So like a business owner that just wants to like
Yeah.
get started, is that
Yes.
right? Okay. So my advice would be if you're a like I always set reference service providers because I work with a lot of people who provide services over like actual products. So my advice would actually be to get clear on what it is that you actually do and how
Mm,
you want to help your ideal audience. So
mm,
the formula, right, for that is know a problem, provide a solution.
mm,
Like that's a simplified, super simplified way to do it. And I think once you're really clear on the problem that you want to solve, figure out what gifts, what skills and talents you have that can apply to solve like said solution. So I'd say that's the easiest way to like get started. And
mhm.
once you're clear on that, everything else honestly flows from there because you're able to speak to that thing. You're able to be like the provider or the solution to that person's need. So that would be my advice for like the newer folks is just provide some help for people because people need it. People need your
Yeah,
skills, people need your talents and your gifts. So once you're clear on how you can actually solve a problem, get clear on what offers or what and when I use the word offer for people who maybe are new and don't know, that's just like your actual services. So
mm,
if you're providing a specific offer or service to your audience, just being clear on what that looks like. So for folks who are maybe looking to get into like brand and web design, my advice would be to it's a little bit different in the past because now with AI and stuff.
yeah,
I would say to just really utilize the relationships that you have around you and never stop creating. And I
mm,
say that because a lot of times as creatives and people who want to like own creative companies and agencies tend to sometimes work in a lot of silos or we're
mm,
always remote. But it's always a good thing to like utilize the network and people around you because that helps you grow, right? So one thing that I've been in a season of is like grow and let go. So that just looks like, releasing control over my business, like delegating things out, talking to people, partnering with other creatives and collaborating. Like I do a lot of collaborations and white label for people just when I want to like even improve my portfolio
mm,
and relationships. So never be afraid to continue building relationships with people in the industry and being able to collab with them. And also
mhm,
knowing what exactly your role is as a creative, because sometimes for me, right, I call myself like a multidisciplinary. So I do like brand work, I do website design, things like that. And so I think it's not bad that you do multiple things, but just know that there are some areas that other people are experts in, and it's okay to partner with them and allow them to use that, because that also helps you with what Patience and I have been talking about this whole time of like capacity and making sure you're not
Mhm.
exhausted. Helps to allow other people to use their gifts in collaboration and partnerships too.
And then what would you say to our more established businesses when it comes to creating a strong presence online? Like when it comes to how should they go about creating a strong presence online?
Yeah, I think the first step is getting clear on what your long-term goals are. And again, that might sound so simple, but it's sometimes challenging, right? Because when
Mhm.
we've been in these businesses, we're just like, oh, I just want to help like 500 people, 1,000
Yeah.
people, but you don't think necessarily about your actual goals, right? Because when
Yeah.
you're like 60, 70, you want to retire, right, as an entrepreneur, like, is your business still going to go? Are you going to shift to like education? Are you going to shift to being a speaker? What are your like actual goals long term? So I think getting really clear on
Mhm.
that. And if you do decide that going kind of the personal route is what you want to take, my advice would be to hire me.
Mhm.
But just really get clear on what it is that you want to do in your business and what you want to speak about. So when it comes to like speaking engagements, I feel like that's pretty easy because you just talk about what you do,
Right.
right? And anything else you can just delegate to your team.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you for that. Those who want to hire you, those who want to hire your services. I mean, I know we're gonna put the links to your website and things like that in the
Mhm,
bio under the posts, but where can
mhm.
they go to find you if somebody wants to work?
Yeah, so you can find me at rpdigital-studio.com, or I am on socials. I'm on Instagram at rp.digitalstudio. I'm sure it'll be linked in the show notes below. But that's pretty much how you can reach me, either my website or my social handles. I am honestly not as active as I should be, but we are working on that. And so you'll definitely always get me if you email me too. I'm pretty responsive. So hello at rpdigital-studio.com as well. If you have questions, just be sure to let me know that you came from Patient's podcast. So I'll
Okay.
be able to figure out exactly how to best assist you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Patience.